Hello Tennis Weekly listeners, this episode is brought to you by Tennis Channel.
Tennis Channel is the only place in the UK where you can watch the 2022 Davis Cup Finals and catch players like
Felix Auger-Aliassime,
Matteo Berrettini,
Marin Cilic,
Francis Tiafoe,
and Denis Shapovalov
as they battle it out for their nations to become the world champions of tennis.
You'll also be able to catch the Battle of the Brits in December featuring Andy Murray, where he will be taking on the likes of Jack Draper and Dan Evans.
Plus, with the Tennis Channel subscription, you get exclusive access to original shows featuring top players, award-winning documentaries, and coaching videos.
Sign up now to Tennis Channel at www.tennischannel.app or download the app and use the code UKDC at checkout for 50% off your annual subscription.
That's just £12.50 for an entire year's worth of access to Tennis Channel.
So once again, that's www.tennischannel.app or download the app and use the code UKDC at the checkout for 50% off. And the link is in the description.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com. On today's Tour Catch-Up,
Switzerland win the Billie Jean King Cup.
Nakashima triumphs undefeated at the Next Gen Finals.
And the ATP end-of-season finals get underway in Turin.
Kim, Chris, today is the 14th of November and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. We have had finals galore at the moment. We have just had the Billie Jean King Cup finals where Switzerland have been the victors. We have just got back, myself and Chris, no jet lag to speak of on the short flight for me anyway, from Glasgow back to London. We've also had the Next Gen Finals, Brandon Nakashima going undefeated throughout the event, and we of course have the ATP end of season finals underway in Turin. But first of all, Kim, most importantly, we haven't even had a chance to speak about, which started all long ago last Monday, the final between Aryna Sabalenka and Caroline Garcia in Fort Worth. Dare I say, is the Renaissance complete?
I know, absolutely spectacular. I know we recorded literally, a couple of hours before the final last week, and it's amazing that the Renaissance is here. I mean, I don't know where do we go from here now that Caroline Garcia
Renaissance 2.0.
Yeah, what will the Australian
What
Open
is the Renaissance 2.0? Is that Grand Slam title? Is that getting to world number one? Is the Andy Murray prophecy going to actually come true?
It could do. She doesn't have many points to defend the start of next season, and someone like Swiatek would have a lot. So could Garcia get to that point? I mean, Chris, what do you think? Is this are we sort of clutching at ridiculous straws here, or do we have a point? Could it happen?
You definitely have a point. I think after this season, it can go one of two ways. Either she will go back to number 70 in the world, or she will be maybe the undisputed number one. But if she can do it in another tournament, I reckon Grand Slam, Renaissance 2.0, it's pretty doable at this stage.
I saw you note on our WhatsApp group, France have GB in next year's Billie Jean King Cup qualifiers. So I'm not thinking about Grand Slam. I'm thinking about that tie and who Caroline Garcia is going to play potentially in that tie. Is it going to be Emma Raducanu? Is it going to be Harriet Dart? Because for me, that's where the Renaissance should be happening.
I mean, that would be a good tie. It definitely will have a good crowd there because it's not far for the French to go. And I'd ask you, Kim, who are you going to support for that one?
Oh,
that's a good one.
Well, I mean, I would support Team GB because it's,
but you might wear a beret.
I might wear a beret and eat a croissant.
Have some
maybe.
baguettes. Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, we're stereotyping at all, are we? But no, she is only the second French player to have won the WTA Finals. Amélie Mauresmo being the first 17 years ago. She's got the biggest title of her career. Super pleased for her. I mean, it has been a really remarkable season for her, and it's just I hope it continues and goes on further because just really fantastic. I know obviously that was like at the start of the week. That was probably my highlight of the week, I have to say. But I know you guys have been busy up in Glasgow. I've been really excited getting your WhatsApp updates every day with all your fun and games from the media room. So, I mean, do you have, a particular highlight from the last week from not just Glasgow, but I guess elsewhere on the tour as well?
That is a great question. I think I'd have to go cheat the rules here and say it was pretty great when Tennis Weekly got a shout out in the press room. So I think that was probably the highlight from Glasgow. I think when we talked about it,
Startled
and made everyone
me.
He went into meltdown almost. That was at the start of the week, and
There was a little tear in my eye. I'm not going to lie.
yeah, and then I had to ask another question, so I had to regroup pretty quickly from that moment. But that was obviously great fun. And then from the tennis week, it has to be something. When I thought I was seeing sort of a case of deja vu, when I saw Belinda Bencic crouched over Jill Teichmann, recreating that infamous moment from Beijing in 2008 when Roger Federer and Stan Wawrinka won gold. And I just thought it was just hilarious as a concept, but also, like, how long has she been saving this up for? Was she saving it up in Tokyo in 2020 when they got the silver medal with Golubic in that one? She couldn't do that by herself when she won the singles gold. So clearly she's like, Billie Jean King Cup is my time. And they knew exactly what to do. They both got the memo. And I recommend you check that out because Federer doing that was just hilarious. But Bencic doing it a second time, I think, is even funnier potentially.
I love that celebration. I think it's such an iconic one. And I remember when Federer and Stan did it at the Beijing Olympics, and it was just so funny. So I'm really pleased that Switzerland brought that out the can, I have to say.
Well, I feel like what we need to see next is we need to see the trilogy completed maybe at the United Cup. And we have a male and a female player from Switzerland. Who would be on the floor, like, doing the Wawrinka pose, and who do you think would be doing the camera pose on top?
That is a tricky one, isn't it? I think that it can't be the same players. It always has to be different people. That's got to be the rule. So I think that Bencic will be out from that one. And I'm trying to think about who would be it from Switzerland. I can't remember who's on the team, but I would say different each time. So they can rotate it after each match win if they have them in wherever they're playing in Perth or somewhere in Australia.
Well, with that, it might get a bit old though the more they do it, but I feel like it could be could become an iconic, not a dance move, but a celebration move. Right up there with the Bryan brothers bump, I think.
Oh, yes. I mean, we did see that actually, didn't we? Between, who was it, Coco Gauff and Katie McNally, I think, at the end of their match, when they celebrated doubles victory. They did a little bump together, didn't they?
They did indeed.
So, Joel, what's been your highlight of the week, looking back over the last 7 days? I think it's been quite a lot, actually, isn't there? Not just all your fun in Glasgow.
Of course, I've been really thrilled to see Jelena Ostapenko back at Riga Nails, showing off her new nails, but also showing off an interesting hairstyle. I'm not sure if it's a permanent thing, but she's got this kind of braids look going on in her latest Instagram story, which, again, listeners, you should be checking out just to see if you think the braids look is a good look on Jelena Ostapenko. I mean, think back to Karolina Pliskova a few years ago when she tried out the braids look. Ostapenko, I don't know if she's taken inspiration from there, but for me, that was certainly an interesting one from Ostapenko. But no, in all seriousness, what has been a highlight for me has been what I would say is kind of a really big storm in a teacup. And this is the kind of ongoing trials and tribulations of Novak Djokovic and his what he calls magic potion water bottle from the Paris Masters, where a video basically went viral of his physio mixing a drink. And of course, this just sent all of social media into meltdown about what it was. Was it, what was it? What was being made? Because it looked very kind of shady in a rucksack. You couldn't really see what was going on. And as a result, you got all these kind of conspiracy theories coming out of what it was. You got Novak Djokovic's wife, Jelena, get involved as well. So, yeah, for me, it was just kind of seeing this story just have many more legs than I feel like it didn't necessarily have.
I feel like this isn't the first time that we've had this kind of speculation around Djokovic, and I feel like when his wife gets involved, it's doing the rounds on Twitter and all of that. But yeah, I think maybe it's been a bit over the top in terms of the reaction, and I mean, yeah, it's I think there's always going to be a bit of a hoo-ha about it. But maybe the PR from Team Djokovic could be a bit better.
I know, it's like they've just like decided not to nip it in the bud and just let the theorists, I think, take over.
I think that's part of the fun of it, though, isn't it? You know, this is the exact sort of thing that kind of people who support a different member of the big three are like, it's true, we found hard evidence, when it's like, to be honest, he probably
It's in the backpack.
didn't want people to know what he was like, what his special thing is. It's gluten-free, it can't be that amazing. Chill out, everyone.
Oh, any
what I
gluten-free listeners? Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not true. Gluten-free is probably fine, but I think it's probably, I mean, if they were going to if something dodgy was going on, why would they do it on court? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be a bit stupid, wouldn't it? But yes, no, quite a lot to talk about this week on the tour. You know, results aside, it's been a bit of fun and games and speculation. But yeah, the week did start with the end of the WTA Finals. Obviously, just mentioned Caroline Garcia winning the singles. We also had Kudermetova and Mertens winning the doubles out in Fort Worth. It was their first finals title, and they came through against Krejcikova and Siniakova, who were the defending champions. So that was a champions tiebreak, coming back from 7-2 down to come through in that one. And yeah, Mertens having a quick turnaround to join you guys in Glasgow, of course.
And Siniakova, actually.
And Siniakova, yeah, like really not a great transition between the two venues, but obviously they've both had great seasons on tour. Even Krejcikova and Siniakova, despite winning that, they've won 3 Grand Slam titles, so it's been a fantastic season for them. But I mean, we've heard from you both in the week as well, your lovely tour diaries from the Billie Jean King Cup final. So we won't go across the whole week because you've obviously covered that in depth throughout the week for our lovely listeners. We have the 2 semi-finals to talk about, though. Great Britain did feature. I think we were all quite pleasantly surprised that we got there, considering we were eliminated back in April and only in on a wild card as the host of the tournament. But Australia, Britain. Now, Chris, I remember you saying, I think you were tipping us to get this done, weren't you? But
yes, I think I was.
It wasn't quite to be. It was so close, though. Barnett and Nichols just kind of losing out in a match tiebreak in that doubles tie. But what did you make, Chris, of the of Team GP's performance in that semi?
Well, firstly, thanks for reminding me of that. And secondly, I was watching it live. And I think it's always difficult, you know, coming off such a fantastic match against Spain to kind of keep that form going. And it's a very different sort of situation, because rather than it be have to win everything, you know, you just got to get the win. So I think for Heather in that match, it sort of looked like there was something that was kind of weighing on her a little bit. Like, she didn't play badly at all, but it wasn't quite kind of the lights out tennis she played before. And it's obviously very hard to do that twice in a row. But if that tiebreak had gone a little bit differently in the doubles, I mean, it was all so close. But the standout for me in that one, it has to be the level from Harriet Dart. I did a tweet saying she's an aggressive baseliner now, and I think maybe she is. Maybe her whole game plan should be hug that baseline and really thump the ball, because she was piling on the pressure. She was moving so well, and she was hitting winners that I've never seen her hit before. So whatever happens, I think they did a great job. Just such a shame that it didn't quite get that sort of the fairy tale story of making the final, but it was a good match. And I said to Storm Sanders needs to take a bow, because she is, I mean, how many matches she played this week? So I think fantastic effort, but unfortunately, we're waiting for France now in April before we play again.
I mean, Storm Sanders was a real revelation, wasn't she? Like you said, this week. And I also think Harriet Dart beating Tomljanovic. Joel, did you see that one coming? You know, Tomljanovic has had a great season this year, so I thought that result was particularly impressive.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it was impressive given, you know, the way that Harriet Dart had started, you know, in the week. We saw her match against Rybakina, and it wasn't good. You know, it felt like at times she was just being hit off the court. But I remember in her press conference then, she was pretty happy with the way she played. She was just, basically saying, look, when someone is playing as well as Rybakina, serving down, 1-2-5 at me, there's not so much you can do about it. But her singles performances against Badosa and Tomljanovic for me were really, really impressive, and actually showed to me that she can hang with those, aggressive baseline players, and, can do more than just sort of live with them. She can actually take it to them as well. And, I think at times, we've seen it in Harriet Dart this season. This has been her best season on the tour, and it's got me excited about what she can do on the tour next season. But I certainly hope that she takes from this event that she can be the number one player for GB, and she can handle those pressure moments. And I think we saw that in this semi-final when we were 1-0 down, Storm Sanders defeating Heather Watson, Harriet Dart coming in, pressure on her. Pressure was also on her in the Spain tie when we needed to win 3-0, and she handled it very, very well. It's not a very easy spot to play in that that second singles. I think Tomljanovic has shown that in this semi-final, but also in the final as well, where she got kind of floored by Belinda Bencic. So yeah, I was really happy and impressed with Harriet Dart. And again, I think it just shows to the British public that yes, there's a lot of talk, and rightfully so, I think, about Emma Raducanu and her chances and her future. And of course, she's made the bigger impression with winning the US Open. But certainly don't forget about Harriet Dart, because she's been playing some fantastic tennis, and I just hope she can translate it from playing in these sort of team environments for GB to playing it for herself week in, week out on the WTA Tour next season.
And let's look at the other semi-final that we had before we touch upon the final. Switzerland against Czech Republic. This one was a bit more straightforward, with Switzerland winning 2-0, two rubbers to none. Golubic also getting a win in that one over Mukova, and Bencic beating Pliskova. Golubic has been, I think, also another really informed player this week. Did you see that coming, Chris, with Golubic for the Swiss team?
I'll tell you what, the thing that I've struggled with most in the last week is trying to figure out who they're going to nominate to play. I have no idea for Switzerland, for Czech Republic, or actually for the US in terms of who they're playing, because they have so many different options, whether it was going to be Teichmann playing this one. But when I saw the matchup, I did think this could be a tricky one for Mukova because she hasn't played that much this season. And after we saw Golubic win early in the week, it definitely looked like this could be a really good opportunity. Those
captains' picks for Czech Republic, I think, have come under the microscope a lot more since since this defeat happened, because Pliskova did not play well. I think was it against Italy in the group stages. Mukova as well, Poland. As you said. Against Poland, and then against Lynette, and then Mukova, as you said, not had that much tennis. And given what we saw, I think, from like Siniakova in the singles, I don't know if she was, tired because it was a quick turnaround or whatever. But I don't know. For me, I was left perplexed when I saw the nominations come in and I saw Mukova Pliskova for the singles.
Yeah, Vondrousova's won 18 sets in a row. Yeah. Like I can't believe that you'd bow out without playing her. So I think it's a case where the Swiss seem to get it right, and they know when to rotate and when to. What they should do, because they can almost always count on Belinda Bencic getting the singles win, and then the doubles, they have options. Obviously, they've got a silver medal winning pair in Bencic and Golubic, or they've got Teichmann and Bencic. So you've got to win one of the first two. Czech Republic would be my advice, but no, I think Bencic, and then in the final, she just never looked back. That was a pretty one-sided conclusion. The only real interesting tie in that one was obviously the Teichmann Storm Sanders result. So Switzerland's first title. I think they deserved the title last year when I do think they were robbed by the Russian Tennis Federation. Yeah, and that's also how they feel, I believe, even though it was within the rules, but it was dodgy. So now I just think, is this what's going to happen kind of ongoing? I can see them defending it each year if you just get these three together.
Yes, because last year it was the Russians fielded a different player. Was it they fielded Sam?
They changed it. Yes, they changed it within the hour. Minute. So then a player who was actually ranked lower than their number two played the number one slot because of an injury pullout, which you can't play as a nominated way of playing because it has to go by ranking. So it was sneaky. Yeah. And Bencic informed me, actually impressed that the rule has changed. But we were talking about it afterwards, and it sort of has changed. But if someone gets injured in that hour, then it could be an issue, because last time they couldn't have been injured in that hour because they didn't even practice that morning on the schedule. So it was all very, very tense. But this time, I think that's not gonna people won't get away with that this time.
I feel like the final, it's been such a great event. I feel the final was a little bit of a letdown, if I was being honest, particularly that second singles, because I thought this was going to be a real dust up from the baseline. I know Bencic has had a great week, and I feel like she actually plays her best tennis for her country. And there are times when I was watching her this week, and I was like, well, why have you not been able to do this on, more consistently on the tour this season? But they really kind of just before there was any sort of drama or questions around what's gonna happen, is it gonna go to a deciding doubles tie? It was already over. So for me it was I'd say maybe a little bit of a disappointing final from like a neutral perspective, but certainly I don't think Switzerland would have minded, given it was their first title. The fact they would have been, I think, highly motivated given what happened last year in Prague, and to do it against Australia as well, who coming in as the number one ranked team, again must feel like a very, very sweet moment. And they've got obviously a very kind of close knit group of players, and maybe because they just don't have that big personnel to call upon, like a Czech Republic or a USA, actually brings them even closer together, and they fight for each other that little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case when you see some of these lineups. I was going to say it is also it is one where you do get surprise results and surprise kind of moments for players you wouldn't have thought, because if you look at some of the rankings of some of the players who said with Storm and being the number one sort of nation in the world, she's ranked at 239. So it's definitely one where it hasn't suffered from the lack of sort of high profile players. It's actually kind of been a tournament that's made by some of these stories, which I think has been super nice. But I really don't understand how Australia is the number one ranked in the world.
I think it's fascinating looking at players like Storm Sanders and also Siniakova as well for Czech Republic, that you see their singles ranking so low, but actually you've got to tell yourself it's like that's probably because they're focusing on the doubles. So it for me is quite fascinating to see these doubles players by trade play in a singles environment and actually cause a little bit of a surprise. And again, I think there's lots of reasons why you can't necessarily take rankings at face value. And I think again that's another reason, is that some of these players, they don't play a lot of singles because they're focusing on their doubles game, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad on the court. And for me, Sanders and again, I've got to say Siniakova, they're just fantastic. I think when you put them in those environments, I'm just always really curious to see how they play, because we see a lot of, I think, singles players play on the doubles court, but we also of course have doubles players who play on the singles court. And going back, Kim, to what you talked about, Kudermetova also in the Fort Worth final, I think she's gone completely under the radar this season. I think she's in the top 10 in both the doubles and singles. So again, it's just very interesting to me how they kind of translate across both disciplines, singles to doubles, but also doubles to singles.
I can't believe I'm hearing Joel say this. Kim, can you believe this? I thought he was determined to categorise them as Elise Mertens the double specialist,
yes.
Storm Sanders the double specialist.
I'm confused now. I am
it's
confused.
Amazing.
The lines,
they can
the
hit
lines
a tennis
have been
ball.
blurred. The lines have been blurred.
It's definitely something we get in the women's game, isn't it? Someone being in like the top 10 or top 5 of both
that
disciplines.
Is true.
But
why do you think that is?
Well, shorter match times, I suppose, for one thing, and just the physicality. A whole number of reasons. Perhaps that's a debate for another episode. And another end of season finals that we had, this time out in Milan on the men's side. We had the next gen event, which saw Brandon Nakashima taking home the title, unbeaten in all 5 matches this week, beating Yuri Lehechka in that final. First ever American winner of this event. And he won 4-3, 4-3, 4-2 in that final, which I still find incredibly strange reading out those set scores like that. But yeah, what did you make of Nakashima across the course of the week? We also had Jack Draper getting to the semi-finals. He had a great week. But Nakashima's in good company winning this title. If you look back at the last couple of winners, they've gone on to do pretty good things. So, Chris, what do you think Nakashima, having won this title, what do you think it means for his career?
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously like a really big deal, because I think you have to show quite a lot of personality to win this sort of match, because it's so different in the nature of the court, in the nature of the way that the points are scored. It's very quick fire, quick paced, and you can't really afford to kind of have a lapse of concentration. So I think it does show kind of who is at the top of the top of the lot, top of the pack at this point. And I think that coming through in this way, he's had a great season. And I think it's quite nice for him because, you know, there are some players who people would have talked about prior to the tournament who had a bit more focus on them. You know, like Musetti, Jack Draper, obviously. There's a couple of 19-year-olds who are pretty good at tennis that aren't there as well. So I think it's nice to have kind of Nakashima come through. But I was looking back at some of the past winners, and I think it is a shame that we aren't getting, you know, all of the top kind of the
Holger Rune
juniors. Well, exactly, Holger Rune and Carlos and the likes of that. I think it's a bit of a funny one. So we'll have to see, because I think previous winners, everyone has almost been there, right?
It's interesting because if you look at the past winners, I mean, from Nakashima's point of view, all the previous champions have either reached a Grand Slam semi-final or broken into the top 10 by the next edition. Now, do you think Nakashima is going to continue that? You know, we had Chung get to the 2018 AO semis. Tsitsipas did that in 2019, plus reached top 5. Sinner top 10 in 2021. And of course, Carlos Alcaraz, now world number 1 and won the US Open this year. Do you sense that with Nakashima? Could he get to a Grand Slam semi-final next year or break the top 10?
I hope so. I feel like with him, I'm a little less certain that, you know, as opposed to a Sinner or an Alcaraz, I don't think Nakashima's been lauded in the same category. And I feel like
I wouldn't even say
him...
not even in like a Taylor Fritz sort of category for American tennis.
Yeah, but I think Nakashima, I think he could certainly get to a Grand Slam semi-final. I wouldn't say he's going to be top 5 or anything or win a Grand Slam, but I think, you know, we could certainly see him have a deep run at an event, or, you know, could he be a freak Masters winner, you know, sort of a bit like a Pablo Carreño Busta or something.
I can see him, do you know what? I can actually see him breaking the top 10, but I don't actually think I can see him being a Grand Slam semi-finalist at the moment. I think that the level for me is such high quality. We're seeing that already, I feel, this week with some of the matches we've had in Turin at the Tour Finals. I think for me that is a much tougher proposition than breaking into the top 10, where I feel like a Nakashima, his consistency across the whole season, I think, yeah, for me, I can see him potentially doing that like a Cam Norrie. But yeah, I'm not so certain about a Grand Slam semi-final, if I'm being quite honest.
I think that's probably kind of fair when you look at it. I think it is a bit different. He is a bit older than some of the previous winners. I'm not saying that this is not age shaming. He is 21 and a couple of months.
So old.
No, but when you think about it, Felix is 22.
Is it weird he's been there twice? I feel like it's an event. It's like you do once and then you move on.
Once. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's that weird bit in between, because obviously like Carlos is almost 2 years younger than him, and so's Holger as well, and then only 1 year older is Felix. So it's all a bit, maybe it's a bit confusing from that.
It's hard to know. Yeah, it's just for me hard to know what to take from an event that has all these rules, this different scoreline. It's been really successful and really innovative, and I like how refreshing it is. But yeah, I'm sort of leaning towards how much can you truly take from it when it's broken what I feel like are so many of the tennis conventions, and the fact that, you know, there are other top players in his age bracket that aren't there. I think we have to maybe take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt.
An asterisk. Is there an asterisk next to this one?
No asterisk. No asterisk is needed, I think. But I certainly just think you have to take it maybe out of context a little bit in relation to the tour.
Would you have not played it if you were him, given that it's his second year? Is it kind of? Are you? I'm not saying it's a pointless title, but do you think like it's not really a vast benefit?
I think for someone like a Nakashima, I think there is still benefit there in terms of profile. I think for me, he's a player who maybe doesn't necessarily have like the personality or the character maybe that some of his other, his peers have. And I think an event like this actually brings a little bit of the spotlight on him more so. And I think that can be, you know, great for him and setting him up for the future and putting as I said, a kind of a spotlight on him. But yeah, in terms of like the event itself and winning the title, I think it could be a springboard, but at the same time, not too sure.
No, I think that's fair points, totally fair points. As for Yuri Lehechka, I personally he's someone that I wasn't so au fait with. So again, it's given someone like him more of a spotlight as well, even though he was the runner-up. So I think all in all, it is a good event, and I do enjoy watching it. And I've obviously go into that. We'll touch upon this in just a bit, because questions around why there isn't a women's version. So but let's take a quick break now before we move on. We're back in the second half talking about Wimbledon's all-white dress code potentially changing, the United Cup draw announcement, and all of the actions so far in Turin at the end of season ATP Finals. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. And now we're going to move on to a lovely par for the courts interlude from Joel. What have you got up your sleeve this week for myself and Chris?
Yes.
To battle over.
I have spent a long time finding. I'm not gonna lie. I was at a dead end for a long time, thinking for a par for the courts for this week. At sometimes I was actually messaging Chris, and I was like, Chris, can you just send me one my way, and I'll give you a little bit of an advantage. But I have actually managed to pull one out the bag, and this par for the courts, it is not a back and forth. This is a give me a number.
Old school, yes.
Yeah, it's a give me a number. So for you and our listeners, what this means is I'm going to give the topic as usual, and Kim, I'm going to give you first dibs. You're going to give me the number of correct answers you think you can guess. And then Chris is either going to challenge that and say, yeah, I can do better than that, and tell me his answers, or he's going to challenge you and say, I don't believe you, tell me your answers.
Let's see what the topic is.
Yes.
What is it, Joel? Surprise
okay.
us.
My topic concerns a certain Iga Swiatek. And of course, we know she's had a fantastic season this year, and her win-loss record was won 67 matches, lost 9 matches. And what's quite interesting is those 9 matches she lost were against 9 different opponents. And I would like you to tell me as many players as you can that have defeated Iga Swiatek this season on the WTA Tour. And I will say there are some bonus points available if you can actually tell me the event that they did it at.
Oh, wow. This is tough. I can remember one quite recently, but
there are some interesting, I'm not going to lie, there are some interesting names and characters on this list, and I think I have been a little bit easy on you in the last few Path of the Court, so I've decided to roll up my sleeves and get a little bit harder on you both.
I'm going to go for 3. That's not very high, is it? But I just I'm going to say 3.
Kim, I'm not going to challenge you on that because I reckon I can do better than 3. I reckon I can do maybe 7.
Oh, blimey. Okay.
Okay, so are you saying rather than just give me like 4, you're going?
Wait,
like,
is that how this works? I'm really going for it.
You
then.
could go high. I'm not gonna lie. If you want to go brave, if you want to go and show off your
say how many.
I'm happy for you to say 7. But bearing in mind, if you give me one incorrect answer, Kim wins the point this week.
Okay, well, I've made my bed, Joel. Kim, I think you might be getting this point, but we'll go for 7.
Oh, okay.
I will try and do it in chronological order and by event.
Here we go.
I believe in Adelaide she lost to Ash Barty. In the Australian Open she lost to Danielle Collins. I think she lost to Ostapenko. I think that was that in Dubai?
Chris, very good so far, yes. Those were the first 3 of the year, so you're doing well on the chronological front.
I then think she lost to Garcia in Warsaw.
Correct, yep. Caroline Garcia at the Poland Open.
I think it was Cornet at Wimbledon.
Correct, yes. That is 5, so 2 away from defeating Kim. So yeah, Elise Cornet at Wimbledon. This is where I think it gets tricky.
This does get tricky.
But there is an obvious one there that I'm surprised no one has said.
Krejcikova and Ostrava. I'm out of order now.
Correct. Yeah, Barbora Krejcikova at Ostrava, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
We've got to go for Sabalenka. That would be a crime not to get that one in.
I mean, this is for your 7th answer. This is for the point. And that's a correct answer. I thought that was the easiest one on the list. But yes, Sabalenka at the Tour Finals most recently, of course, was the most recent opponent to defeat Iga Swiatek. There are still a couple of answers you haven't said.
Shall I have a go? Shall I give it a go?
Can you get 100%? I'd be impressed if you were able to do this.
I know that she lost to Madison Keys in Cincinnati.
Very good, yes. Can you go for the full house? Has this ever happened before?
This is exceptional.
The last one, I'm really not sure. I know that she lost in Canada because I know she played Canada, but I really don't know who she lost to.
I watched this match and...
Oh, did you?
Yes, it is correct. Canadian Open, Toronto.
I don't know who it is, sorry. So close, yet so far.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So we had Barty, Collins, Ostapenko, Cornet, Garcia, Madison Keys, Barbora Krejcikova, Arina Sabalenka, and the player you're missing at the Canadian Open in Toronto, Beatrice Haddad-Maia.
Oh, Haddad-Maia.
Yes.
I don't think I'd have ever got that. I think I've tried to just remove that from my memory. Wow, what a result for her.
And what a result for you? I mean, 8 out of 9.
Oh yeah, thank you guys. Yeah. I'm glad I did get I went too high with the number, I think. I just had to get more than 3. So next time I know, you don't have to say something crazy.
I would never have been able to match you on that one. So I think my guess of 3 was probably quite accurate.
You would have got 3 though, that's for sure, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to over-egg the ones I didn't know. But I knew like Sabalenka, Garcia and Collins. Was it Collins? No.
Yeah.
Barty. I've just made up Collins, so I wouldn't have even got that.
But that was
so
right,
there we
go. Yeah.
Oh, Collins is right, yeah, at the AO.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'd have got to at least 5.
Well, Chris takes the point this week.
Well,
Chris
thank you very
wins.
much.
We've got a mailbag for this week from Stephen. He got in touch via email, so thank you very much, Stephen. And I alluded to this earlier, but Stephen's asking, given the success of the ATP Next Gen Finals, should the WTA consider putting on an equivalent event to showcase the best up-and-coming players on the women's side of the tour? Really interesting question. And I feel like from an equality kind of natural kind of perspective, you know, I feel like there should be something similar. But then when you think about it deeper, maybe not. Joel, what's your thoughts on this question from Stephen?
I agree with you in the sense of instinctively, you know, we're seeing more and more joined up ventures between the ATP and WTA tours. And I like the similarities and the parallels you can see between the tours. But actually, for me, this is an event that I don't think, you know, should exist on the WTA side. I think, you know, we see, you know, with players, it's easier for female players, I think, to break onto the tour earlier. And so, you know, the age restriction, I think, at the moment for like the Next Gen Finals, I feel like it just wouldn't work on the WTA side of things because, you know, we get number 1 players, we get Grand Slam champions happen at very, very young ages. You know, Emma Raducanu at the US Open. So, you know, some of these players we might just naturally see at the end of season finals, and as a result of that, the players left for this, for me, doesn't necessarily, you know, need that. And I think if you do think of it like, okay, then, well, why don't you kind of lower the age? Then again, I don't think that works because I think you want to protect, you know, young players and make sure that they have a schedule that is, you know, that they can handle. So yeah, for me, I don't think this is an event that, in theory, I think, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, maybe on like equality terms, but actually in practice, for me, I don't necessarily think it would be the best idea.
Joel, that's very controversial. I'm slightly surprised by that because I was looking. I do think it's true that you can get some breakout stars at different ages, but I would argue that kind of the presence of 2 kind of 19-year-olds who are so successful on the men's side kind of pulls into question, like, does it make sense because they're going to play the bigger tournament? Like Yannick Sinner, if he'd qualified, he didn't obviously this year, he would have also qualified on the 21 and under rule. And And if you look at the top 8 for both of the men and women, the top 8 are all, for the under 22s for the men, are all below 80 in the ranking. And for the women, it is actually 65. So it's actually quite similar in terms of the players. But some of the players who would have made it out of interest for the women, and we can kind of discuss whether we think this makes sense, would be the world number 1. Iga Swiatek would be there. Coco Gauff, Anisimova, Qin Wencheng, Fernandez. So
you were getting excited just listing off these names.
Yeah, because I just think, wouldn't that be a great tournament to see some of them? But at the same time, I do think you would have that crossover. So it's actually the same in terms of 2 players who qualified for the end of season championships would also be in the next gen. So it seems like it's a problem across both. So why not make it a problem for both, I would say, in the name of equality?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that was where my argument was sort of coming from. As soon as you said Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, I'm just like, it sort of falls down
Grand Slam
for me.
final,
I do think it's
literally
an
a Grand
issue.
Slam final.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel also like they need the publicity or the promotion that I feel like the platform of that next gen branding is
3 more years Coco could play it as well. That's a bit scary, isn't it?
Exactly. So again, there's a lot of danger. I mean, Kim, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking maybe they could make it for a certain age group with a certain ranking. I don't know.
Maybe
sort of
rather than
compromise.
next gen, maybe they should just do an old gen finals of players over 30.
Oh goodness.
Yep. Players on their way out. To
Yeah, the over 40s could be a thing.
Last hurrah tournament gets Gilles Simon involved.
Oh, okay.
The over 35s it would have to be then. It would just be Murray and Simon just trying to battle it out.
7
is
ladies
true.
and Gilles Simon, yeah.
Yeah. Bit like, the
You're
Luxembourg
obsessed with Gilles
ladies
Simon.
tournament, yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, well, that was a good talking point from Stephen. Interesting food for thought there. And actually that does bring us on to a sort of mixed event that we have, which is the United Cup, which the draw has been announced. So this is the new Hopman Cup that's replaced the ATP Cup. It's happening before the Australian Open. We've got the draws, we've got the different groups and where they're going to be playing. So we've got the top 6 seeds, which are based on the combined ranking of top male and female player. Any guesses for who's the top seed based on the rankings of the female and male player taking part?
Spain?
No.
USA? No, it's surely not. Is it? It's not to do with separate rankings, is it?
It's the combined ranking. Yeah.
Greece?
So actually,
No, it can't be.
Greece. Yeah. Number 1 seed is Greece.
Is it the top 2 players then? Must be.
Yes. Oh, sorry, of the top male and top female player. So I guess that would be a Tsitsipas and Zachary job.
Mm-hmm.
Poland, number 2, Swiatek.
And Hurkacz.
And Hurkacz, yeah. 3rd seed is USA, 4th is Spain, 5th Italy, and 6th France. So they've been spread across the 6 groups. Group D is pretty interesting. Spain, Australia, and Great Britain.
Yeah, for me, that is not an easy group. I don't think that's an easy group for
Harriet
GB.
Dart. Is she playing?
Well, I know. I've got renewed sort of confidence given what I've seen in the Billie Jean King Cup, because Cam Norrie and Dan Evans, Dart, Swan are kind of the 4 players I'm looking at. But it'd be interesting to see how that develops. What I thought was quite interesting about the draw, there is no Canada. There is no Canada in there, despite obviously having 2 top male players, Felix Auger-Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov. You've obviously got Leila Fernandez, Bianca
Eugenie
Andreescu.
Bouchard.
Eugenie Bouchard, exactly. But no Canada in the list.
Rebecca Marino.
Exactly. So I was a little bit surprised not to see Canada in the draw.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. They won it last year as well. I mean, they won the ATP Cup, didn't they? So they sort of won the equivalent almost.
They're on Davis Cup duty end of this season, so maybe it's a bit too much for them.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I think there's some really good names in this event. Like the draw looks good. I think it could. I think Group D is that. I think Sydney have got the tastiest action, but I think it will remain to be seen. We'll see if there's any sort of withdrawals and that. But exciting, we already have a draw underway, and I suppose this will all be kicking off in less than 2 months. It'll be
so quick, isn't
it?
Who was playing for Norway for the women? That's my big question. If anyone knows the answer, let us know, because that is wild.
That is a very good question.
I think it's rare that I can't name a WTA player under a flag, and I have 0.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see some new talent in Brisbane in Group E.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose Brazil, they've got Haddad Maia, haven't they, for their because Brazil are in Norway's group along with Italy. So yeah, but I mean, another event a bit further afield. Got a bit more time before this is upon us again. Wimbledon. News out of the All England Club recently that the dress code is expected to be changed to the top layer of clothing only. So this is where we start talking about women's underwear and the white rule, which is currently in place for everything. And you know, we spoke about this when Wimbledon was on, and a lot of female players were speaking out about, you know, when you're kind of menstruating and it's that time of the month, wearing white clothing, white knickers is not great. And Wimbledon look set to change part of the dress code at least, and be a bit more I don't know, respectful, I guess, to you know, half of the people at the tournament who would definitely benefit from this. But you know, not just women, everyone I think would benefit from this. And
The men as well. The men can wear coloured
exactly.
pants. You know, underneath
everyone
the
can
white.
wear, yeah, men can wear
Whatever
pink
coloured pants they like.
whatever pants they want now. So
Do you think Nike's gone back to the drawing board and they're like, we need to make a statement? This is a thing.
they could have like funky patterned pants that show through the white shorts, and then everyone can.
Are you
I mean,
thinking
like-
like Stan's shorts are going to get a sequel, like Stan's boxers?
like a bumblebee, sort of like a wasp color coming through, you know, something to really push
Yeah.
that rule, because that's how you stand out from a sponsorship perspective, right?
Exactly. It's going to be all about the pants now. So
I mean, in all seriousness, now I think this is a great change if it does come through. I think we've had so many kind of traditions, and I get that, you know, Wimbledon is steeped in lots of traditions, and that's one of the reasons it has such great appeal with players and spectators. But I think it's great to see that sometimes traditions need to be changed, or there needs to be things that need to be acknowledged, and it's something that has been, I think, a big talking point this season. We're seeing, you know, for example, in the UK, we've seen football clubs like West Brom and Man City do similar things, and it's great, I think, to see Wimbledon being part of the innovators. They're not sort of resting on their laurels. You know, it shows that they're listening, I think, to players. You know, we heard from, you know, Heather Watson in the summer about the situation and the mindset and the exact extra anxiety that can come being on the tennis court. So I think it's great, I think, to hear the right noises being made regards to this. And although I think some people will naturally be disappointed and like that sort of classic all white look, I certainly think at the moment it's certainly some time for a change.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite shocking when you look at the history of it. I mean, previously, like Tatiana Golovin wore some red knickers when she played, and that was a dress code violation, and they actually said she had to go and change it. She refused to. So that was 2007. We've had other sort of undergarments have to be changed. Naomi Brody had to play without a bra because she was violating the dress code rules. 2 juniors had to change their underwear. So I think as much as we can look at this as being heralding as a positive thing, I think it's a case where, I mean, in 2017, they probably didn't have to make juniors go and change their underwear to play at Wimbledon. It feels like they've been a little bit behind and they need to do something here. And less than, I don't think celebrating, I think it's more about time would be my reaction.
yeah, and I think we really shouldn't have to, in 2022, have to talk about tennis players' underwear full stop, and it's a bit stupid that we do. So on that note, let's talk about the ATP end of season finals instead, which are well and truly underway. We've got the last of the singles opening group matches getting underway shortly, with Novak Djokovic against Stefanos Tsitsipas. Already had wins for Casper Ruud, Taylor Fritz and Andrei Rublev. The Rublev match today was especially quite exciting. The last set tiebreak win over Medvedev. But what do you make of what we've seen so far? I think we had a straight sets for Casper Ruud, a straight sets for Taylor Fritz over Rafa. Rafa struggling quite a bit in that second set, 6-1.
Kim, I've noticed you're trying to glance over the Rafa loss.
Well,
I mean, you were watching it. What did you make? Because that second set, 6-1.
yeah.
I think Taylor Fritz, I think I was reading, he's the first player since Dominic Thiem, I think a few years ago, to have beaten Nadal twice in one season. What is it about the Tour Finals and Nadal that is just not a good... It's not a good mix.
It's not. Indoor hard courts is probably the main answer, I think, over the course of his career, plus the fact that it's at the end of the season. And Rafa's obviously often either not there at all or they're in a sort of fairly tired, injured state. I still don't think he's 100%, and he's still, he hasn't really had the recent kind of match practice under his belt. I did feel like that first set was quite pivotal when he lost that tiebreak. I thought, doesn't really, I'm not feeling it. I don't think he's feeling it. And we saw, kind of Taylor Fritz run away more or less with that second set. But, I'm still surprised Rafa's here, to be quite honest with you. I just, we've seen him not be at this event so many times. So I don't really have any expectations. So we'll see how he fares against Felix tomorrow. On the note of Felix, I was also a bit disappointed that Felix lost to Casper Ruud. I thought Felix, given his
I was
recent
a bit surprised by that.
Yeah, I was kind of tipping him. But, it's a group. It's round robin. They can still come back. There is still hope for them both.
It does feel like the results we've had so far, the fact that Taylor Fritz was the 8th seed, beat the number 1 seed. We've had very, very close matches. Rublev also finally getting a win over Daniel Medvedev. I feel like in that rivalry, it's been very, very one-sided certainly up to this season anyway. But it genuinely feels like everyone... I'm looking at these matches so far and thinking everyone can beat everyone, and we can get a few more. I think we're in for a few more shocks and surprises on the way in the round robin.
Does that imply that anyone can beat Novak Djokovic in the round
I
robin?
think so. I think
do you
so.
think?
Yeah.
Ooh, I guess that Holger did do it recently on an indoor court, but on that Nadal point, Kim, I think that the serve still isn't quite right. I looked at the serve stats for that one, and he won 59% of first serve points and just 20% of second serve points, which in this sort of match that I was watching, I don't think that Taylor was particularly aggressive off both wings off the return of serve. I think it's a case that the serve isn't quite back where he'd want it to be, and on an indoor court, you really want those cheap points. For example, like Casper, who's obviously also not known as being, the biggest server on the tour. He didn't face a single break point. So it's definitely one where I think that is still a sort of an issue for Nadal. And I guess I'd ask the question, it's hard to know where his level is at, and only he will know how well he's training. But it does seem from his last couple of matches that maybe he's chasing this one because he hasn't won it, but maybe it's not the best decision to play in Turin this week.
Still, like the after effects of that abdominal tear earlier in the season really affecting his serve. And I don't know if it's the wisest decision, but maybe he's also thinking, I may not get the chance to play this event again, and I'm kind of fit enough to be there, so I might as well kind of make the most of it, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Djokovic tonight. I mean, I think given what we've seen, I still Djokovic for me will be the standout favourite to win this event still, despite having lost in the final of the Paris Masters. But we'll see. The Brits, though, in the doubles, they've 3 from 3 so far. Joe Salisbury, Lloyd Glassball,
Neil Skupski.
And Neil Skupski today. Yep, so that's great. We've got good representation for British doubles. So hopefully one of them teams can walk away with the title. But that brings us pretty much to a close. But we will be back next week to round up the ATP end of season finals and digest what happens in Turin over the next 7 days.
And we're also going to look forward to the Davis Cup. So yeah, still plenty of tennis to come, as we know, with this never-ending tour, what it feels like at times. But yeah, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this latest catch-up with the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us on whatever device you listen to us on. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. You can also listen to us on the downloadtennis.com app. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Tennis Weekly Pod. So do give us a like and a follow if you don't already. And let us know all your thoughts, any questions for the mailbag, any feedback that you'd like to give. We always love hearing from all of you lovely listeners. And if you prefer, you can also email us instead at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our website, www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we are going to be back on Thursday at Tennis Weekly HQ. We've actually got a recording from the Billie Jean King Cup finals. Me and Chris had an interview with the tournament director, Rebecca James. So look out for that one. We're probably going to be posting it on Thursday. We've also, of course, got our Tennis Weekly diaries live from the event, from the Billie Jean King Cup, day 1 to day 4. So if you haven't already, check out those pods. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from myself. We'll see you again soon.